Hey there! Today we're going to learn how to graph a function over a specific domain. I will provide all of the tables and points that you need to plot. So let's talk about this question here. Graph the function f of x equals x plus 1 over the domain -4 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 2. So let's say a student graphed this line in green. Just to review, this student does not get full credit because when they say graph over the domain of -4 to -2, they mean they want you to start at -4 and stop at -2. These arrows mean that it goes on forever because he or she did not graph over the domain given. They should have done something like, well, here's -4, should be a closed circle there, and up to 2, closed circle there, and then this should not have been there. All right, let's do a multiple choice question. What is the domain of this function? Keep in mind that domain talks about the x values. So the domain is where the graph starts and stops. So it looks like it starts at 4. So I'm going to get rid of anything that doesn't mention starting at 4, and it stops at 13. Now both choice 1 and 2 mention 4 and 13, but if I'm looking for a domain, that's x. So I want to choose choice 1. Okay, here is a question straight from the back of the Regents exam. It would be a short response. Graph f of x equals square root of x plus 2 over the domain -2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 7. Before we get to the graphing, just based on the domain, when do they want you to start the graph and when do they want you to stop? You want to start when x is -2 and you want to stop when x is 7. You don't want to graph beyond that. It's kind of like there's keep out signs. Anywhere past that, it's forbidden. So let's actually work on graphing this. And the next slide is going to be a little overwhelming, but I'm going to explain. So this whole keep out section here and here, that just means we're not going to graph in those areas. It's just to remind you, nope, can't cross there because we're going to start when x is -2 and stop when x is 7. So if you had a calculator in front of you, you would hit y equals, put that in the calculator, hit graph. That's what the graph is going to look like. Looks like a little hill. And then second graph, and you'll get the table, and those are going to be the points that we're going to plot. So the first point I want to plot is when x is -2. So I go to my table, looks like that's right here, -2, and I want to stop when x is 7. So I have my table on the slide here, so I can literally draw where I want to graph. I don't want to graph anywhere before that or after that. Now, some of these points are going to be really tough to plot, and that's okay because I'm literally just not going to plot them. So my first point is -2, 0. -2, 0 is right there. And I'm going to have a closed circle to start with since there's a line underneath. The next point I can plot is -1, 1. And do you think I'd be able to plot the next point easily? 0, 1.4142? No, that's going to be a mess. So I am going to skip any points that look gross. So what's the next point that I should plot? Should be 2, 2, which is right here. 2, 2 on the graph. And I'm going to skip. And what's the last point I'm going to plot? Well, that would be 7, 3. And I'm not going to go beyond there. So let's say I graph this. Do I want to put, let me make that a little neater. Do I want to put an arrow at the end of this graph? No, I don't, because I want to stop at 7, not go beyond that. So this is the only thing that we should see. No arrow. That would be incorrect to lose a point. Okay, let's do a piecewise function. So I'm going to be graphing the absolute value of x, and then I'll be graphing 4. I know it looks funky, but that's totally fine. So just before we get started, just looking at the top graph here for absolute value of x, when do I want to start? When do I want to stop? Okay, you want to start, let me just make that clearer, when x is -3, and you want to stop when x is 1. And for the bottom graph, 4, when do you want to start and stop? I want to start when x is 1, stop when x is 8. So I'm going to graph both of these on this graph, and we have to be careful because we do have an open circle. Okay, so this is the same exact question, just I have all the calculator information with the points to plot and all that stuff. So let's do the absolute value of x first. So I put that in the calculator. If I was to graph the entire thing, it would look like this. But I'm only going to graph a little part of it from -3 to 1. So when I go to my table, what's the first point that I want to plot based on this information? The first point is -3, 3, because I'm starting when x is -3, and that's literally right here. So I get rid of that. So -3, 3 is right there. Do I want an open circle or a closed circle? I want a closed circle because my symbol has the line underneath. The next point I'm going to plot is -2, 2, -1, 1, and 0, 0, and then 1, 1. Do I want to plot the point 2, 2? No, because I wanted to stop when x was 1, so I don't plot that. I graphed all these points, and I did not graph 2, 2. Now, for this point right here, based on this inequality symbol, should I have an open circle or a closed circle? I want to have an open circle since there's no line underneath. So just to make it look extra clean. If we were in person, I would tell you, all right, go and grab your rulers to make a perfectly straight line, but that'll have to do for now. So that is the first part of this piecewise function. That is totally done. I'm going to focus on this next one, f of x equals 4. This is a function. It totally counts as one. I know there's no x in it, but in your calculator, you would just type into y equals 4. When you hit graph, it literally just looks like a horizontal line. And I'm going to be graphing a horizontal line in between 1 and 8. So the first point I want to plot here, because I'm starting at 1, is 1, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And do I want to have an open circle or a closed circle? Closed. And the next point I'm going to plot is 2, 4, and then 3, 4. And I think you see the idea. I'm going to keep plotting these, but oh no, I run out of table. What's the last point that I'm going to plot based on this domain? 8, 4. And do I want an open circle or a closed circle? Closed, because I have the line underneath. And I grab my ruler and I do a straightest possible line across. This would be a 4-point question on the Regents. You get points for graphing and points for using the correct circles at the end. Let's look at a graph that's already done. I am starting with a closed circle, and I'm starting at -1. So we're going to do this very step by step. I should switch the colors on those. So the circle tells you if there's a line underneath, and this We'll tell you that information. So what would be the domain for this graph? So I'm starting at -1. So that goes there. I don't have a stop because it's infinite. So I'm going to choose my inequality symbol. Do you think, so this arrow is pointing towards values of x that are greater, and the closed circle means that I have a line underneath. So it's okay to have a domain that only mentions one number. That just means the other number is forever, infinity, and they sometimes mention infinity, sometimes not. In this case, they do not. All right, let's graph another one together. So this is y equals 2 to the x minus 7 over the domain x is less than 3. So this is a different looking kind of domain where they give you a value to start/stop with, and then you're going to have to use an arrow. So this symbol here is less. Ooh. So I'm looking to graph values that are less than 3. So some values that are less than 3 would be like 2. Oh, let me go the other way. 2, 1, 0, -1, and so on. So when I'm looking at my table, I'm going to start at 3 and plot my first point, 3, 1. Now, if I'm looking for values that are less than 3, should my next point be 4, 9, or should it be 2, -3? It should be 2, -3 because that is less than 3. I don't want anything to be greater. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start plotting. So 2, -3. And then 1, -5. And then 0, -6. And then -1, -6.5. And then it just kind of gets like real close to that 7. That's what that means. But it never quite touches. So let's just clean this up. Based on that symbol, I do want an open circle. So I'm just going to, well, I'll erase the whole thing. My first point was 3, 1. Open circle. And I'm going to connect my dots. And because it told me never to stop, I'm just going to even off like that. What do I put at the ends of my graph here to show that we never stop? We're going to put an arrow. You could trace it to the end of the graph like best you can. I just find once it gets really close to this limit here, to just put an arrow. And that's how you graph that. Okay. I think so we're going to do one more together, and then I'll have you do some on your own. Based on this question, y equals absolute value of x minus 1 over the domain, -4. Oh, my inequality symbols are all off. Let me fix that for you. These should be less than, so that's totally my bad. I'll just do it that way. Less than x, less than or equal to 3. First of all, based off this domain, when did we start? When did we stop? Start when x is -4. Stop when x is 3. So what is the first point we want to plot in this table? That would be -4, 3, just like my domain. Not related though. I don't want to plot -5, 4. And do I want an open circle or a closed circle for my first point? Open. There's no line underneath. So -4 is -1, 2, 3, 4. Up 3, 1, 2, 3. Open circle. And then I just keep plotting. So I did that one. I want to do -3, 2. -2, 1. -1, 0. 0. -1. 1, 0. And I'm just going to keep going here, but what's the last point I should plot from this table? I want to stop when I get to here because I want to stop when x is 3. So I'm just going to keep going, 2, 1, and then 3, 2. Do I want an open circle or a closed circle? Closed. So 3, 2, closed circle. And I'm not going to plot these because they go beyond my domain. And I connect my points as straight as possible, and that is it. So I am going to have you graph a couple of these on your own. The first question here is multiple choice. You're going to fill in that a positive. And then these are drawing slides. For this one, I gave you 2 hints on how to do these. And you have access to the table we'll be plotting from and the graph to look at so you can see what you want your picture to look like. So you'll do some of these on your own on a student-paced Pear Deck. We can just draw right on the slide. So I'm going to put the link in the Edpuzzle. It'll also be in Google Classroom. And let me know if you have any questions.